Before we begin, consider something unsettling. History is full of criminals. But very few criminals become surrounded by presidents, royalty, billionaires, scientists, and some of the most powerful people alive. That is part of what made Jeffrey Epstein different. Because the mystery was never only what he did. It was how he gained access. How he moved through elite circles so easily. How someone so controversial appeared so connected. And maybe the biggest question of all. Was Epstein simply good at entering powerful rooms? Or did he understand something deeper? About how power works. Stay until the end. Because one theory about how he built influence changes the entire story. When people hear the Epstein story, they often focus on scandal, crime, allegations, the mystery surrounding his death. But another question has quietly haunted the case for years. Why did so many powerful people know him? That question matters. Because connections create fascination. Especially when those connections seem improbable. Some saw Epstein as a wealthy socialite. Some saw him as a manipulator. Others believe he was something even more difficult to define. But almost everyone agrees on one thing. His access was extraordinary. And extraordinary access invites extraordinary questions. Tonight, we're exploring how access may have been built. Not through rumor, but through patterns. Because often, patterns tell you more than headlines. And once you start following those patterns, this story starts becoming much bigger than one man. Some people chase money. Some chase status. Some chase power. But Epstein may have understood something else. Access can lead to all three. And that idea may explain everything. Because in elite circles, getting in the room is often more important than being the richest person in it. Many observers believe Epstein recognized this early. He reportedly cultivated relationships strategically. Not randomly. Strategically. That matters. Because networking and access building are not always the same thing. Networking collects contacts. Access creates doors. And doors can lead to influence. Imagine understanding that one introduction can become 5. 5 can become 50. And eventually, you appear connected everywhere. That may have been part of the formula. Not sudden power, but accumulated access. Step by step. Room by room. Relationship by relationship. And perhaps that is how mystery often grows. Not dramatically. Gradually. Almost invisibly. Until suddenly, someone appears surrounded by influence. And people ask, how did this happen? But this is where it gets stranger. Because access alone wasn't enough. Epstein also appeared to understand image. An image can be a form of power. In elite environments, perception can open doors long before trust does. And Epstein appeared to understand perception. Luxury properties, private aircraft, prestige, exclusivity. These things can signal importance, whether deserved or not. And sometimes, signals become reputation. Reputation becomes credibility. And credibility attracts even more powerful people. It can become self-reinforcing. Some call this social proof. If influential people associate with someone, others often assume legitimacy. And that assumption can be enormously powerful. Because people often trust status cues. Especially in elite circles. Think about it. If someone appears surrounded by financiers, politicians, scholars, and famous figures, many assume they belong there. Few ask how they got there. That may be one reason Epstein continues to fascinate people. Because his rise seems to challenge assumptions about how elite trust works. Was it charisma? Calculation? Performance? Maybe all three. And maybe that combination made him unusually effective. But the next part raises even bigger questions. Because image alone doesn't explain sustained influence. For that, many believe something deeper was involved. Some analysts say Epstein may have mastered positioning. Meaning, being present where powerful people naturally gather. Finance, politics, philanthropy, academia. Ideas move through those spaces. Influence moves through those spaces. Opportunity moves through those spaces. And those worlds often overlap. That overlap matters. Because when networks overlap, connections can multiply quickly. One introduction leads to another. And another. And another. Soon, someone appears deeply embedded. Even if they began as an outsider. That possibility fascinates investigators and observers alike. Because it suggests access may have been engineered. Not accidental. Built. And once people suspect influence was built intentionally, the story feels different. Less like coincidence. More like design. And that is where fascination deepens. Because people don't merely wonder who Epstein knew. They wonder how he positioned himself so effectively. And whether others have done the same. That question reaches far beyond this case. And now, We reach perhaps the most controversial theory. Was his influence based on charm or leverage? Because those are not the same thing. Some described Epstein as persuasive. Some described him as enigmatic. Others described him as calculating. And maybe those descriptions reveal something important. Power doesn't always operate through force. Sometimes it operates through usefulness. People who appear useful often gain extraordinary access. That can happen in politics, finance, everywhere. Some speculate Epstein understood this. How to become valuable, interesting, connected, hard to ignore. And if true, that may explain why his network appeared unusually resilient. But here is what disturbs people. When usefulness and secrecy overlap, suspicion grows rapidly. And once suspicion grows, it rarely returns quietly. It expands. And often, so do the theories. Which brings us to the biggest question. Maybe this story was never really about one man. Maybe it was always about power itself. Maybe the reason people can't let this case go is because it touches something deeper. Trust, institutions, influence, accountability. Because if one controversial figure can appear deeply connected, people naturally ask, what does that reveal about elite systems? And those questions don't disappear easily. Because they are bigger than scandal. They are about power. And power always attracts scrutiny. Maybe that is the real reason this case survives. Not because every theory is true, but because the questions feel unresolved. And unresolved questions endure. Sometimes for decades. And maybe the most unsettling possibility is this. Epstein did not create the fascination around power. He exposed it. Because perhaps what disturbed people most wasn't one man's access, but how possible that access seemed. And if that's true, this story was never only about Epstein. It was about the architecture of influence itself. And that is a much bigger mystery. Now I want your theory. Was Epstein simply a master manipulator? Or did his connections reveal something deeper about power? Comment below. I read every theory. And if you want part 2, where we break down suspicious contradictions people still debate, subscribe now. And comment. Part 2. Because trust me, the strangest part of this story may still be ahead.